I think this is a really important video right now. We gotta talk about some of these mapping problems. This is by a literal legend, Emperor Tigerstar.
So there's been a popular trend of animated maps going around showing a Google Earth projection and semi-transparent color layers on top showing either the war or empire that the video is focused on.
Yes, and I have reacted to a lot of these videos. They're popping up all around the internet, and they have been for several years now.
They're very smooth and flashy, often showing troop movements, troop count, and maybe even also casualty counts as well. As someone who's been making YouTube historical maps for 16 years now, it's always cool to see the new ways the craft is evolving.
Dang, 2009, that's so crazy. Yeah, I was in high school at that time. I think that this format did explode, not only because, people are familiar with specifically Google Earth. This is, Google Earth mapping, but also I really enjoyed the format of being able to see the casualty count, to see the numbers that were on the front lines, how many people are dying at different times, at different moments during the conflicts. But we're going to learn why there's a lot of problems with this. And this has been in the back of my mind for a while, but I think Emperor Tigerstar perfectly nails it here.
However, the way these often called Google Earth mapping videos are being done has a lot of problems, and I wanted to make a video about it. I think that many aspects of this style of mapping range from deceptive to inaccurate, and with how popular they are right now, I'm worried about the medium choosing flash and speed over accuracy and scholarship.
And sadly, that is not just contained to the geography community here on YouTube. Like, it goes way beyond that. Geography/history. This is happening literally everywhere online. So it's a constant battle to try to, make sure that the bar is set high when it comes to certain content, especially when it's supposed to be educational.
Firstly, I don't want this video to be a takedown piece so much as a call to action for these creators to do better. While some channels in particular are much bigger than others, and I'll use them as examples more, the criticisms apply across most of these channels. It's not about making mistakes in videos, everyone does that. I still make mistakes in my videos. The issues are about the practice in general. Secondly, I say these things partially from my own experience. My older videos were terrible, and many things I'll bring up in this video are problems I've had to make changes about over the years. I started my channel when I was a teenager, and it wouldn't surprise me that many of these channels are also younger people doing this for fun, and maybe not realizing the problems of the videos they make.
Absolutely. I mean, we're only talking about kind of a sub-genre of the overall genre that I feel kind of a part of here on YouTube. Kind of geography, history related. I know that a lot of this stuff, especially like in the country ball community, for example, a lot of this stuff is probably made by teenagers, and that's cool. I mean, I was making videos when I was a teenager too, but there does need to be a line. I think this is a good video to kind of like strive to try and up the level of quality here, essentially.
So if any of those channels happen to see this video, I hope you take these criticisms constructively and are willing to make some changes. It's important that historical map videos do their best to be accurate and informative to help people learn history better.
Specifically maps. That's so huge, because like I mentioned earlier, like when it comes to like, for instance, country balls or like different sort of meme-y country history videos, at the end of the day, it's a meme video. Like people don't inherently expect it to be 100% accurate when it has that like meme undertones. When it comes to maps, when there's no narrative, when there's not like some idiot like me out there just like, hey, making jokes or talking whatever. When it comes to just like no narration, just a straight up map, it's very easy to take stuff like this like extremely factual, because it presents itself as kind of 100% fact. Versus, like I said, other memes, history memes, country balls, anything like that.
So let's get into the issues with Google Earth mapping.
I'm talking country balls a lot because that guy had a country ball profile on his thing, but yes, Google Earth mapping.
So the first issue is honestly the choice of using a Google Earth satellite map in general. Obviously, aesthetic is a personal taste thing, and some people are probably going to just like the look of a satellite map.
Especially not only for the creator, but for the viewers themselves. We're so used to this. Like, we're very, more than likely, you're probably more familiar with Google Earth than maybe any other globe/map out there on the internet right now. So I think that helps people jump into the video, dive into the video a bit more. It helps connect people that are currently living in 2025 to maybe like a 1945 scenario, because it's like, oh, this is a familiar setting, this is a familiar satellite map. let's see what happened during World War II, during this, in this place that I know so closely, whatever continent or city or whatever we're talking about. But obviously that has problems, and that's what we're going to talk about.
Looks real. You're seeing the actual Earth. However, the issue comes in a few areas. Firstly, readability. I'll probably have to make an entirely separate video on map readability as a whole in the future, but in this case, the readability issue with Google Earth Maps is the use of layers.
I think this is, out of all of his criticisms here, I think this is like lower. Like it shouldn't matter quite as much. There's better things he's going to talk about here, but I've always had a problem with it personally. Like I 100% agree that readability is a weird thing. However, that's not the major issue, I think, and we're going to get into that.
I understand that to see the Google Earth map underneath, you need the color layers to be somewhat transparent. However, this means you have a mixture of labels from the Google Earth layer and whatever labels you put on top. It makes it difficult for the viewer to distinguish them sometimes. But putting that bit aside, the bigger problem is that Google Earth uses modern borders, names, and cities.
That is the real issue right there specifically, but I can easily come out here and I totally agree with him. I think these maps are really ugly. Like, I think it just doesn't look very visually appealing, but I don't really want to knock that. I don't really want to say that because at the end of the day, that's just my own opinion. Some other people would definitely disagree with that. However, modern borders, modern cities, that's really going to confuse a lot of people if they're watching these map videos specifically for the first time.
You might see a video on the Roman Empire and assume, well, surely people know that the modern borders, names, and cities are just there for reference. But if there's one thing I've learned over the years, never assume what people automatically know. Someone might think, wow, Rome conquered London, that's really cool. The problem is, they didn't. They founded London after conquering the area. Oh wow, they partially invaded Ukraine. Well, Ukraine didn't exist back then.
Yeah, man. The maps in the background, like the overlaid modern day map. I think it's cool for reference, though. That's the thing. I think people will enjoy that. Like a viewer is going to enjoy where exactly, because they more than likely are most familiar with the 2025 political borders and boundaries versus, well, they're definitely probably not familiar with the borders and boundaries from 2,000 years ago. That's exactly why they're watching this video in the first place. I think I feel mixed about it. Because I think certain viewers probably do like that they can see, oh, look, they got to this point in Germany, just for reference. But yeah, it can be a little misleading for a viewer that is not super familiar with the topic at hand.
Oh, wow, they partially invaded Ukraine. Well, Ukraine didn't exist back then.
Yes. Yeah, it obviously did not, but I do think the viewers probably would like, oh, that's Ukraine over there. But the thing is, he's right. Like, I have seen people like come to the wrong conclusion in the comment section and say like, oh, I did not know the Romans cared that much about Ukraine. They had no idea what the frick Ukraine even was. They did not, you know what I mean? Like, that can easily snowball that effect if you take it the wrong way.
Google Earth does have the ability to remove modern borders and city labels.
They didn't know. They knew what the Ukrainian land was, but the idea of a Ukraine, they did not. That's I just want to be more specific.
So I think doing that would be a lot better. But if you insist on having modern borders and cities anyway, at least make a note somewhere on the video to point that out. I used to show modern borders in some of my older historical videos, but I've learned since that it's a bad idea. But while you can remove modern borders and cities from Google Earth, you can't change the modern terrain.
I do like personally mapping videos that do not have the modern borders on, but that's a taste thing, and it's just because if I am explaining a video to you guys on this channel, I can tell you where the Roman borders are getting. I could say oh look, the Roman at the height of their empire, the Roman borders stretched all the way to modern day Ukraine. Like, I don't need the borders on the map, so that's specifically why I don't really want them on there. It feels, because I also want to see the world the way that these different civilizations were seeing the world. Like this, funny enough, I was going to say like this is what the British Empire was seeing. Not really. When they first came over to the Americas, not really, because they definitely did not have these specific states and all the western side of North America mapped out there. I had no idea what the heck was going on once they were like initially creating those first 13 colonies. But overall, if I can put myself in the eyes of these old empires, as best I can, then I would prefer to see it that way without modern day borders.
Itself. For the videos covering the Russo-Ukrainian War or any war in the past decade or two, this usually isn't much of a problem. However, it is a problem when covering any older historical subject. One might like showing a satellite map because you can see the terrain, but a lot of the terrain changes just like borders do.
Bro, this is such a good point. This is like a really good point. This is where I think, this video is very important to be made. And he's going to get into a couple of geographical examples. I'm going to add my own as well.
Deserts and forests will grow and shrink. Urban sprawls will grow and shrink.
I know, because this is a satellite map of the Earth as of, we're assuming of 2025 or very, very recently. That is not what the Roman empires would have seen. If the Roman empires were able to launch a satellite, if they were able to launch a satellite up into space 2,000 years ago, this would be very, very different, the situation. This is like including, we have 8 billion people on the map. Do you know how many forests we've cut down, how deserts have expanded and, contracted and retracted? Is that even the word? How many lakes have just disappeared since 2,000 years ago?
Coastlines are altered.
Rivers also, that's a huge thing. Look at how many times the Yellow River has changed course throughout history. Oh, and so that's a big reason why the Google Earth mapping is a problem.
Europe's forests have grown over the past century.
Yes, so we're exactly talking about the forest. Actually, I'm going to back this up right here.
Will grow and shrink. Coastlines are altered. Europe's forests have grown over the past century, and
they have obviously gone down, but they've grown a little bit with certain policies that the governments over there have been making.
Then if you compare Europe now to a few centuries ago, and then again to Roman times, it's way different.
This is an extreme example, and there's probably no mapping videos that are going back 12,000 years ago, but there was literally an island called Doggerland in the middle of the North Sea. Like during that ice age, the most recent ice age, you can't even begin to use a Google Earth map of 2025. That's only 12,000 years ago. In the scope of things, that's not that long ago. In the scope of Earth's life, that's a blink of the eye.
The Sahara Desert has grown significantly, while the Amazon, Congo, and Indonesian rainforests have shrunk.
Yeah, again, mainly humans are cause for so much of the geographical changes in the last several centuries. But this is a great example, the Aral Sea.
Aral Sea famously went from the 4th largest lake in the world to nearly...
There's Lake Chad. Those little details are so amazing when you look at a very high quality mapping video to see an accurate representation of what the Aral Sea was looking like.
Disappearing within just 50 years. Meanwhile, humans building dams have created large reservoir lakes that didn't even exist 100 years ago. Using Google Earth maps to depict something decades or even centuries ago is just inaccurate. If you like the aesthetic of showing terrain, that's great, but if it's older historical events, make your own terrain layer that's more accurate. Perhaps the biggest example on why this is a problem is with this video on the 80 Years' War.
Oh, yes. Oh, and this is a famous channel. It maps in a nutshell, too. Yeah, the 80s... So we're going to talk about the lowlands, their land reclamation. This is a really funny example. This is like a perfect example to bring up for the point of this video here.
Famously, the Dutch coastline has changed a lot, and while it's great that this video shows the correct coastline on top, it still shows the land from the Google Earth map. Again, don't assume the audience automatically knows why it looks like this. For all they know, this bit could have just been a tiny neutral country. Even now, you have events like the Kakhovka Reservoir Lake in Ukraine drying up due to sabotage. Do the Google Earth maps show this change? No. I understand so much of Google Earth mapping revolves around the Google Earth aesthetic, but it alters the reality.
That's a good point to make. Again, I do think that's a key component on why these videos are so popular, the aesthetic.
Of the ground and misconstrues things. It's one thing to say a map cannot show every aspect of a war or empire. That's just the limitation of the medium as a whole. This sort of thing, though, is something that could be changed with a different map.
Very true. Now, the example that I was going to bring up, I thought he was going to bring up, I don't know why this is the first thing that comes to my mind, to be honest. Just about 500 years ago, you used to be able to literally walk from India to Sri Lanka. You could walk there. You literally need this small strip of land because this existed. Humans used to be able to do this 500 years. That's not even that long ago. If you're mapping out the Roman Empire, and for some reason you're showing India, you're going to need this little strip of land because that's what existed. And Google Earth is obviously not going to show that. This small strip of ground would go and extend for literally 30 miles. That's crazy. It wasn't until a typhoon came and then submerged it indefinitely. So here's the big stuff though, the casual casualties.
Okay, so a lot of these
Casualty
videos
counter.
will show either the number of casualties during a war or the size of the army on either a specific front line or as a whole. The numbers are changing fast and smoothly, and this is done by using keyframes. Basically, the idea is you put the numbers at different points, and the program will auto-fill in the gaps by having the number count up or down at whatever speed it takes for it to get from number X to number Y.
Yeah, it's just like keyframe. If you're used to editing, you just punch in how close you want a keyframe to zoom into my face, for example.
Certainly looks cool and flashy, but again, there are many issues with using this. Firstly, armies don't increase and decrease this smoothly. I understand that it's a natural limitation of the software, but there are days in a war where tens of thousands die, and days where barely anyone dies. But the numbers will still count up and down smoothly like soldiers are dying at the same rate each day.
Yes, battles are not as linear as these videos make it out to be. He's exactly right. Like a giant battle will happen on a Tuesday. 10,000 people die. For like 2 weeks, nothing happens. Maybe like 1 or 2 people die. And so, yeah, this part of these types of videos, bit misleading, I'd say.
Or should I say dying and getting injured, because often the videos use casualties, which includes injuries and deaths.
How amazing would these types of videos be, though, if you can just, you see the date and you just see the explosion of casualties that happen right there, and then it stops? I know that's more difficult to do, but that'd be really fascinating to be able to really see the significant days where, for example, World War II caused a bunch of casualties. Like, boom. It's probably going to be very difficult to do for some of the older wars. World War II, definitely possible, but for like a Roman, empire and their expansion, that's going to be difficult because, those numbers we don't know we don't know exactly what was going on, but still, it'd be very cool, even more educational.
But what about people that died off the battlefield? What about when people get transferred from one front line to another? Obviously, I don't expect perfect casualty figures, but I feel like there's a line between estimating casualties and outright false conceptions on how the numbers get to where they are.
Yeah, I don't think anyone is watching. I hope. I don't know. I hope that nobody is watching those videos and thinking these numbers are 100% accurate, the casualty count. I think every time that I've talked about these specific videos, if I'm reacting to it, if I'm explaining one of these videos, I think I've mentioned that, okay, these numbers are probably more estimations. I mean, they're very hard for even historians to kind of figure out exactly how many people were wiped out in a certain battle or entire war.
I remember for my American Civil War Everyday video, I tried to show deaths in battle and I wanted it accurate to the day. I had a very good book showing those numbers for thousands of battles, yet when adding up those numbers, it's still missing many from official total estimates. Some of the battles had different numbers depending on where you got the source from.
Yeah.
Then also for battles that went across multiple days, I basically had to divide the numbers evenly across those days. And while in the end it was more accurate than general keyframing, it still didn't sit right with me, and it's why I gave up showing real-time kill count or casualty numbers long.
This is a great video, though. This video is one of, I think, Emperor Tiger Star's best videos. So I think that was definitely worth it. But I mean, look, this is from a war from only 150 years ago. So, and we still, the numbers are still hard to kind of figure out for 150 years ago. So you can definitely say that over that time period, it's going to be too difficult, more than likely, to get accurate sources and all that stuff.
A lot of these videos will occasionally show boxes that represent a certain number of soldiers, usually around 1,000 since that's a common battalion size, but not every army uses the same army sizes, and not every war just lines them up across the entire front line evenly. I don't want to have a feature just to make it look cool if it's not even right. Then while at least for some wars like the American Civil War or the World Wars we have a decent idea of casualties, there are some wars where the ranges are just so large so there's no way you can accurately show them at a day-by-day level anyway. This one video shows the casualties and army size of Rome altogether. Just all of Rome. I'm sorry, there's just no way to get reliably accurate numbers for every war and time period in Roman history. It's just not possible. Also, there's a point where the total casualties for Rome started going down. How does that even happen? What about the people that die outside of war? Is that factored in? What's the methodology here? Where are the sources for this?
And what's crazy too is, I mean, especially with the Roman stuff, I mean, those sources are, well, you'd be surprised. That's a scary black pill to take. But when it comes to history, you know, the sources that we have dating further enough back, they are pretty famously known as unreliable sources, but that's all we really got. So, yeah, there's certain parts of what we know as history that's built upon, I don't know, some pretty faulty information.
Well, that leads to the next big problem.
But that's all we got. So we're kind of screwed.
These videos.
Citations needed. Yeah, we could see
So
why.
this is a problem that's common with educational YouTube in general, and Google Earth mappers are no different. If you look at the most notable Google Earth mapping channels, and look at their 20 most recently made videos, they barely include citations, if at all. Strangely, some of them will show citations for ones depicting modern wars, but then none for historical ones. I know a lot of people on the internet have a problem with just believing what the video tells them, but that makes it all the more important to cite your work properly so people can either learn more about the subject or figure out how you make your videos. Many of these channels have been accused by other historical mapping channels for tracing other people's work. Now, admittedly, I find accusations of tracing a bit annoying. Firstly, there are two aspects of an animated historical map that can be traced: the coasts and borders, or the depiction of a map's front lines. Coastlines and international borders aren't intellectual property, and virtually everyone traces those when making their base maps. I do that when making base maps for my videos by hand because I enjoy the feeling of drawing by hand. I've been quite open about that.
This is a weird topic to bring up. When it comes to tracing, there's something very fun about just drawing on maps. That should not be surprising coming from me as someone that has been drawing on maps for a while. But like just making the thumbnails for this channel or my gaming channel, it's nice. I feel like a lot of these channels that he's talking about here would probably enjoy that process. There's a lot more control that they'd be able to get out of the whole thing rather than just using Google Earth. But you kind of have to begin to expose yourself to that. You got to practice that. But there's something extremely therapeutic, me just kind of tracing on a map just for a thumbnail. That's usually what I'm doing.
Many others will use programs like QGIS to essentially
tracing, drawing, making the borders change. It's nice.
have a computer trace a map for them using a set of coordinates or another reference map. Tracing front lines of a war, however, is a gray area because unlike modern international borders and general coastlines, there are usually no objectively precise front lines, and many people will draw their interpretation of an accurate front line based on their research. So in this case, it's no longer common or general knowledge, but rather a lighter form of using someone else's work to supplement or replace your own. However, I've found that most of the time when a channel is accused of this form of tracing, it's certainly not an exact match. And while you could argue the general shape or advances look very similar, if both videos used accurate or similar sourcing with good information, it's going to look similar.
And what's interesting about this too is that there are absolutely 110%, there are people that are like hyper, you know, the community of like the Titanic? There's people that are so entrenched in how exactly the Titanic sank, whether it like actually lifted up, when it broke apart, all this stuff. That same like sort of I don't know, anal amount of people. I don't even know what else word there to use. People that are so hyper anal. Those people definitely exist when it comes to, well, a lot of history, but specifically when it comes like the example was the Eastern Front there in World War II. If you get it wrong, if you are like, no, if you show that the no Germans, the Nazis were moving into a certain part of the Soviet Union before they actually did, or maybe they didn't, or there's like the sources are a little bit mixed up, there are people that are going to blast you. They're like, no, the Soviets did not allow the Germans to get to this region because of blah, 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 blah. And then there's another anti-community that's like, no, they did actually get there because blah, 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 blah. And it's just like over the most, I'm sorry to say, I don't think I should say this, but mundane thing, something that like really doesn't matter. That doesn't matter that much. That's all I'm going to say. But there's definitely people that exist like that. And that is why you do got to be extremely careful when it comes to making these map videos.
Recently, Maps in a Nutshell was accused of tracing for his Aztec conquest video from
because I've literally seen it. I've seen it happen in comment sections all the time because I've been watching map videos. Like I said, since I was in high school, it's pretty hilarious seeing some of the comments, like some of the like less upvoted comments. You go to sort by new and seeing some of like the rage that are going on. Not all the time, but just sometimes, depending on the subject.
Another mapping channel, and frankly, not only does it not look the same as the video in question, but this is a bad example anyway because the route of Cortez conquering the Aztecs is extremely well documented and consistent across any reference one might use. So calling this tracing when it's probably not doesn't really help anything. But I can definitely see obvious general referencing of other people's work. Referencing in of itself is not a problem because the entire fields of history and geography reference other people's work and build off of them as a foundational concept. The issue is tracing or referencing other people's work without properly citing them. It tells people who you reference not just so they can have credit for their work, but also so if you map something that seems weird, people can look at your sources to know how you arrived at that conclusion. I know some channels get angry when another channel gets a more successful video on the same topic. Believe me, I've had people openly use my work as the majority of their references and then get a video more successful than anything I've ever made.
That's literally YouTube for you. That is just the reality that we're living in here on YouTube and the algorithm, and it happens. It's just a mess. Sometimes people will just upload the right video at the right time and it just takes off. Even if there's another video that's even better. When it comes to this specific example though that he's talking about, my only guess is it's longer, and that's all YouTube cares about nowadays. That's all they prioritize. Is this video probably got slightly more watch time? If I don't know exactly. I mean, these videos 7 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes. This one just extra 3 minutes. It makes a big difference.
It's understandably frustrating, and unfortunately you can never fully escape that issue. Especially when there are hundreds of mapping channels now of various sizes, there's going to be subject overlap. It's just going to happen. But if you want to at least get people off your back and stop accusing you of tracing, then provide your sources across every video you make.
That would be interesting too, because maybe the community would be less, a certain aspect of the community would be less angry at you for doing something that they don't think is accurate. Then you might get to redirect some of that anger towards, well, whatever the source is. Hey, you could be like, hey, I just cited the source. I would use that more if I was one of these channels. Like, hey, I'm using this guy. If you have a problem with, if you have a problem with what I did in my video, he was the source. Be mad at him. And then maybe some of the comments are just like, okay, I'll go fight it out with this historian or whatever it is.
Just to be clear, I also used to be horrible at this. I started my channel as a 13-year-old just making videos out of boredom, and my citations ranged from none at all to barely a few broader ones. At the time, I didn't see my videos in the same area as an academic journal article or a published book. I even used to have the silly mentality where this random video didn't mean so much, so whatever. But this World War II video? This is serious. Better include citations. It was...
That's the thing. You'd be surprised at how often people are using these videos as like 100% educational. Don't underestimate how often people will use them possibly in a classroom setting. I would not be surprised if some of these maps are being shown in a classroom setting, even if it's just to maybe inspire the class, inspire the students, just to give them an idea. I'm sure there's got to be maybe a lazy history teacher out there, maybe not even lazy. He might just be trying to get his kids to pay attention. So you might throw on one of these map videos, and you do got to keep that in mind. You do want it to be as accurate as you can make it, because there's going to be kids in that classroom that will think it happened like this for years, unless they dive in a little bit deeper.
Inconsistent for many years. But as my audience grew and I learned how much they used my videos to help with their own research or schoolwork.
Bro, yes. Emperor Tiger Star is like basically a historian for a lot of people at this point, just because he's been around for, I didn't know anyone that made videos like this. This was just the guy. Like I guess I started seeing more and more slowly with time, but he was he still is number one in my head, but he's like a fundamental part for a lot of people, I think, nowadays in 2025 that love history.
I then realized it was important for me
that are around my age, I will say. If you're younger, then maybe use somebody else, but
to get better at that. It not only was more responsible, but it helped me make my videos better than I previously was doing. Obviously, any form of citation is better than none at all, but for the past several years, I've decided to use full Chicago-style citations whenever I can and put them in the description.
I love
If you
that.
don't know how to do that, I recommend using Citation Machine, which has templates for every major kind of citation. Microsoft Word also has a similar feature if you'd prefer that. I've been spending the past several years remaking older videos to redo them with my current standards. While I've deleted some older videos, you don't even need to do that. I've been going through my older videos and marking them with either an outdated label or inaccurate label so people at least know that what they're watching has problems, but can still view it if they really want to. Take it from me, the sooner you do this, the better not only your videos get, but the better your reputation gets.
What a legend to be able to do that, to be able to go back and just do that. I know that's not easy. So it's very cool that he has taken that step. It's not easy.
It's cool that you guys have brought a lot of people to history and geography, but you need to make sure it's done more accurately and with more academic honesty, especially in a world where unregulated AI slop gets more and more common.
It's everywhere, bro. It's getting everywhere. It's kind of crazy. I want to make a video about that so bad. AI is just it's been taken over for a while, but it's really, it's impossible. It's just slop everywhere. It's flooding. Obviously all of YouTube, but in my space too, it's crazy.
It makes it that much more important that there are ways to distinguish accuracy and honesty from deception and falsehoods. So again, I hope if any of you Google Earth mappers are watching this video that you'll make the effort to better your practices and videos going forward. I promise it'll be worth it, and it's the right thing to do. I'm Emperor Tiger Star, and I'll see you guys next time.
It's a very nicely worded video, good way to put it. Responsible video. Isn't it interesting when there's the Battle of Thermopylae and there's a 12-lane highway the Persians can just walk into to surround the Spartans? That is a very good aspect of why the Google Earth maps are a problem. Thank you for covering this topic. I found some of the videos of this style interesting, but the moment I thought about the army size numbers and casualties, I realized that it's literally impossible to have so much data on those to track them anywhere near accurately enough for it to be informative instead of misinformation. That was my thing when I first stumbled upon this sort of genre video. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. This is really cool. Till I began to slowly dive into it a little bit deeper, and I'm like, I don't know how much we can really trust this. It is very cool though to think about. At least, I think that was why these videos got so popular in the very beginning. At least it's like, oh, well, this is opening my mind to a different aspect of geography and history, and we have the casualty counter, but it started being more and more fishy, like, oh, how much of this is really to be trusted? Like I said, the video is by Emperor Tiger Star. Please go subscribe. Thank you to my patrons this month. Drew seems like the kind of guy who never loses the remote. Drew's Argentinian Trust Fund, Rip Grandpa. Drew Supremacy League. Alexander the Terrible. Carmel S. Connor Pavlik. Douche Baggins. Frederick Tiblin. King. Bear Hayes. Luxembourg Lover. Miglu. The Goat. Nolan. Lord Tyrol. And Tambrin.